Welcome to another session on how to be a great game master. In today's session we are looking at D&D, the new edition. I hesitate to call it the 5th edition, but technically that's what it is. It's 5th edition D&D. And I have to say, every time that Dungeons & Dragons launches a new product, I'm always very nervous. My players are always very excited. And of course, I'm nervous because I want to make sure that the rule system that they're bringing in helps to tell a story. I won't pass comment on the 4th edition MMO called D&D because that's what it was. It was very, 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 very disappointing from my perspective as a game master. However, I am happy to say 5th edition is a totally different beast, and it is a beast that is centered specifically around role-playing. I think they've gone right back to their roots and really streamlined things and brought in a fantastic role-playing element. So, what makes it so great as a game master to run this game? Well, firstly, the rules are wonderfully simple. Modifiers are kept to an absolute minimum, character progression makes sense and isn't wildly out of scale. A 1st level character and a 5th level character and a 10th level character are within reason fairly well balanced. Your game doesn't have to adjust too quickly to these new levels. I've also found that because of the way that they've structured the level advancement, you can have lower level characters with mid-level characters and they don't really notice too much. Sure, the creatures hit for a little bit more, but at the same time, the variance of modifications is actually fairly small. So, simple rule system, very simple skills system, which does take some getting used to, I will admit. Stealth seems to cover a vast array of thief abilities nowadays. So does sleight of hand. Acrobatics and athletics seem to be interchangeable depending on the situation. So there are some areas of overlap. The skill system has been simplified, almost taking us back to 2nd edition where we had a fairly small parameter of skill sets. And of course, what's very nice is that everybody has access to all of them. There's no such thing now as you're a mage, you can't have this, or you're a fighter and you can't have that. It's entirely up to you as to where you allocate your skill points. And of course, those change your dice rolls. They have compounded a lot of skills from 3.5 into a block skill, if you like. So things like athletics, acrobatics, arcana, religion. Most of the knowledges have gone. They've been compacted down into other things like nature or survival. So the skills have been simplified, and it allows you as the GM far greater latitude to make a request for a specific skill check, and you have confidence that your players' characters will actually have those skills and be able to make those rolls. So that's a very nice aspect about it. Another section that I really like, and this actually is part of the core game mechanics, so you can't avoid it, which again, this helps solve a lot of those questions that you guys have been sending through in terms of how do you deal with a character who doesn't want to do backstory? Well, you get them to play D&D 5th edition. Because part of the mechanic of D&D 5th edition is things called your personality, bonds, flaws. In other words, it's background traits which you actually have to have in order to create the character. These traits then dictate certain role-playing opportunities for the player. So in other words, if you have the personality of someone who's a coward, when you role-play that character as a coward, you gain points from the GM, which are called inspiration points. Now, you can only ever have one inspiration point, but it allows you to take what they call advantage on a roll. Basically, it improves the chances of success. So you actually burn through those pretty quickly, but it helps drive characters' storylines. The player understands that these inspiration points are there to be used, so the more they play to their character, their traits, their bonds, their flaws, and so on, the more inspiration point opportunities they get, which means the more successful they are during situations that require dice rolls. So in other words, they've built in an actual game mechanic to support role-playing, which makes me very, very happy. I've actually had players who in the past I didn't think necessarily were very good role players, now playing to this very simple set of 4 character-defining traits and having a lot more fun than they have had in the past. The DM's guide, Dungeon Master's Guide, is fantastic. It is packed full, not of rules, but of ways of how to run your game and your adventures better. The focus in the book is definitely on how to create really good adventures and how to keep your players interested in your game. Now, in another session, we will be going through the Dungeons & Dragons Adventure Generator. And I'm going to be talking to you not in terms of revealing all of the secrets of the generator, but in terms of how you can use your skill as a GM and that powerful thing of yours called imagination to take the generator to a whole new level. So look out for that one. Finally, the Monsters Manual. I, in the past, have very seldom paid much attention to the Monsters Manual apart from looking at the pretty pictures, simply because the skill sets that the monsters have had in the past, players, especially experienced players, have gone, oh, we're fighting an orc. All right, well, don't worry. It's got this armor class. It's got this many hit points. It does this kind of attack. To avoid those kind of players who've memorized every single book that Dungeons & Dragons has ever released, I simply would use the skin of an orc and the stats of something inside my head, which, of course, was always there to drive the challenge rating of the player characters just to the edge, because I'm now controlling exactly how many hit points they have and exactly how much damage they do, which prevents the players from metagaming and working out strategies to solve standard monsters. However, in 5th edition, the monsters are deliciously simply laid out, which allows me to refer to them and quickly make adjustments on the fly. There aren't pages and pages and pages of stats and rules and that kind of thing. The challenge rating system has been changed slightly, so it is still there, but at the same time, so is the XP value of the creature. So if you're old school like me and you prefer XP versus challenge ratings, well, it's there as well. I have to say the artwork is absolutely sublime. The book is a treasure to have and a wonderful resource. There are some new creatures there, and of course, all the old good creatures are included. So overall, 5th edition for me, Dungeons & Dragons, for me, is really a fantastic role-playing system. It's not nearly as in-depth as 3.5 was, or as Pathfinder as a comparative. However, it is a quick and simple system that anyone can get into and play straight off the bat in a fairly immersive environment, because those traits have been built in to make the characters a little bit more alive, to kind of bring home to players that if you have a backstory, it will make your experience better. So if you want a game that's going to help your players engage in a more narrative form of role-playing, this is it. It really is fun. I suggest you go and get it. We've got all of the books, and we'll be getting all of the books that are going to be coming out invariably, but that's absolutely fine, because this system is, in my opinion, one of the best role-playing systems out there. I hope you liked this module. If you did, click on the like button. If you want to hear more, of course, click on the subscribe button. Until then, happy gaming.